You know what I used to love, especially during March Madness while we were working together? If I was at home watching on TV, guess who I got to see all game long on TV?
Who's that?
That would be you, my friend. Sitting there right next to probably either the radio announcers or right next to the bench with the coach strolling back and forth on the sideline.
Yeah.
And there you'd be right there. You'd have a tie, a button-up shirt.
Yeah.
A nice hair part.
Looking sharp.
You'd never really look frazzled. You didn't look frazzled. I don't know if that's because you knew the camera was basically on you all the time.
Yeah, I did.
But this week on the podcast, we take you behind the curtain of hosting and being around major events. We'll tackle some of the big picture things.
When Coach Cal was at Memphis, and I remember talking to their SID, they had gone to the Final Four, and the next year I was just like, hey, man, were you okay during that? He's like, I honestly don't remember one thing about it. Some of the more mundane. But
Airheads,
delicious.
though, were kind of like Starbursts. I did the same thing. Open up an entire pack of Starburst and just smash together like 10 different pieces in different colors.
Yeah.
And then eat it as like one big. It's almost like one big
What a
Airhead.
strategy.
We'll tell some stories. They actually had to get security guards, not because it, I mean, I'm sure probably a little bit of a safety issue. It's because these kids were all going, they wanted his autograph to see him. People were knocking up on his room trying to figure out where he was.
And relay strategies on taking advantage of opportunities. I tell you one, talk about TV, Barca, and I would always try to get on TV, dude. Always. Episode 5, let's go. Underlay.
Let's go!
This is the true story of two washed-up sports guys who chased the dream. Private flights, championship rings, running sideline to sideline on per diem and adrenaline.
We gave our 20s and 30s to the industry, pulled off miracles that were never in the job description. In return, low pay, long hours, and we still got cut from the team.
This is about what really happens behind the badge, the burnout, the bad bosses, the dream job that didn't love you back, but also the lifelong friendships, the chaos, the holy shit stories you couldn't make up. And somehow, despite everything, you'd still do parts of it all over again.
This is for the ones who lived it, loved it, hated it, and still kind of miss it. For everyone who's ever asked, how in the hell did we survive that? We are two former sports insiders with more than 40 years of experience and more than enough scars to make fun of it all.
And just enough trauma to start a podcast instead of going to therapy.
I'm Brandon Barca.
And I'm Andy Boggs.
And this is No Longer Credentialed. We once had access, now we have opinions.
Welcome back to No Longer Credentialed, the podcast version of This Was Your Life.
And not This Is Your Life. That ship sailed long ago. Larry Bird is not walking through that door. Mox and Billy Bob aren't walking through that door. They're not even doing the new tweeter end zone dance and saying, I don't want your life. And Mayor McCheese sure as hell isn't hamburgering through that door.
Before we jump in today, we just want to thank everyone who's been listening, sharing, and sending feedback. It's been incredibly cool and also bittersweet to realize how many of us have lived the same chaotic life. We've heard from folks who spent decades in the game, people still grinding, and others who left, but still flinch when someone says, TPS reports are due by the end of the day.
Yeah, maybe we've accidentally unlocked a secret society, people who survived working in sports. One listener called this the college sports version of listening to The Cure after a breakup, which is either deeply flattering or very, very, very deeply concerning.
The goal here has never been to go viral or torch the industry. We're just two old heads with expired credentials telling stories, telling on ourselves, and saying the quiet parts out loud.
If it helps one person survive this career or find humor in the wreckage, or even feel seen when they're doing 4 jobs for a loaf of bread and a box of Polos from 3 seasons ago, then it's worth it.
All right, let's get into some of the letters from the trenches. These came from listeners who, like us, maybe still haven't fully recovered. Love the new podcast. As someone who got out after 18 years, though thankfully on good terms, those who don't live the life truly don't understand it. Keep up the great work and look forward to more. Good pod. It's been great to listen to going into work. Hit me in my soul with the countdown social media requests or random events or camps that we had to promote. Listen to 3 episodes of the podcast while driving over the Memorial Day weekend. Love it. Keep doing the great work. Y'all have a knack for it, and the perspective needs to be heard.
Ah, yes. There's nothing like the trauma of bonding over camp promotional flyers. Man, I miss those days. Reading more of the comments here, we may have opened up just a little too much in the therapy episode. Here's what came in. First, there's a ton of truth in this episode, and everyone who listens should do so with the thought that just working hard will never get you promoted, though it may allow you to hang around longer. But that's not always a good thing. Also, very raw, vulnerable convo about working in sports. Good stuff. And I could talk for days on this subject alone, and I still haven't figured it out. Last one, preach. I'm right there with you guys.
Just keep working hard and you'll get promoted, they say. We just call it professional gaslighting.
Ain't that the truth?
And from our 5 suckiest jobs in sports episode, we knew this one would hit a nerve. Great episode. Just think how many of your top 5 worst are done by 1 to 2 people at smaller schools. Event staffing, managing tickets, pass lists. I hated those. And SID work all at the same dang time.
Yeah, I don't know, man. That's not really a job description. That's more of a cry for help. I've seen this before. I know it all too well.
Postseason drama, too much caffeine and not enough sleep, with every eyeball locked on your brand. Since the NBA Finals and College World Series are coming up, we thought we'd crack open the playbook on how to get your team ready for the moment.
We've lived it. Media days, elimination games, 16 straight nights in a La Quinta Inn in the middle of America. When the stakes go up, so does the pressure on the people behind the scenes.
I'll give you some do's and don'ts from the event side, then Barca will give you his blueprint for leveling up your digital strategy when it matters most.
Boggsy, I am so fascinated to hear your plan of attack here. I'm going to be taking copious notes in case you don't hear from me, like I didn't just wing the entire season.
All right, BB, let's get into it. These are the top 4 things you need to think about when you're getting ready to host a big event. If you've never done it before, it is fun and exhilarating, but also exhausting and around the clock. But I will say you'll never forget these experiences. Number 1, the first thing to think about is you're going to encounter some things that you've never thought about before. And more than likely, we'll have to do some outside-the-box thinking. It's going to happen, so just brace yourself for it. There are going to be multiple requests coming in, more than you're used to, and you have to be thoughtful about who you're going to allow in, and more importantly, where you're going to sit them. Where are you going to put officials so they can have a private conversation? Are you going to feed people? How do you do credential pickup? All important questions to answer from the media relations side of things. Oh, and for you, Barca, we have to really come through with snacks. Lots of Airheads. Which
Green apple?
I need apple Airheads. And I want to ask you, how many Airheads have you put together and eaten at one time?
Solo Airheads or mashing multiple together? How many multiple ones have I put together?
I'd like to hear both numbers.
I usually try to get the rainbow effect. Yeah. And so I'll try to grab 3 or 4 Airheads and push them all together and then try to eat them all at once. It was kind of like back in the day when you'd have, remember the old pouches of Big League Chew?
Oh, love those.
You have like grape and watermelon, all those flavors.
Did you mix flavors of Big League Chew? Did you mix flavors?
Dude, I don't discriminate against flavors, but you just try to build that big pouch in the side and you try to see how much of this pouch can I get into my mouth? Can I get a full Big League Chew? Big League Chew is tough because then you get all the juice from the gum. So got kind of gross.
Yeah.
But Airheads, though, were kind of like Starbursts. I did the same thing. Open up an entire pack of Starburst and just smash together like 10 different pieces in different colors.
Yeah.
And then eat it as like one big, it's almost like one big
What a
Airhead.
Strategy.
So Airheads, I would probably say 3 or 4 Airheads mashed together at a time.
Yeah.
That's usually if I was going to my dealer after middle school and buying them with the lunch money I didn't use.
Trapper Keeper. Did he have a Trapper Keeper full of goodies?
And there was a time I sold candy too. I dealt candy. I was on the street.
Dealer.
There was good money. When I started seeing I could buy a blow pop for like 10 cents, but sell it for 25 cents,
Oh,
man,
it's
I was an
capitalism.
entrepreneur
Yeah.
for sure.
So all the
But-
media, all you people out there, you got to have Airheads on your snack bar. You just have to have them. For rain delays, Airheads, they're just great. Number 2, Barca. Sometimes you have to tell people no, or you have to put people in places they don't want to be to watch the game, whether that's an upper-level media seat or maybe one that's outdoors in the hot sun. You have to make do with what you have. The buck stops with you, and there are some times when you have to be the bad guy. It's life, and you have to do the best you can.
I'm not doing it, Boggs.
I know. We've had situations like that before where
I'm not doing
people are not happy with where we've had to put them, and you just have to go with the flow, man. Like, there's only so much you got. Spaces you have, seats you have, and, sometimes you got to diffuse some conflicts. And
just remember, if you're stuck in the elevator going up and down the entire game, it could be worse. It could be in one of those ticket office jail cells we talked about a couple of episodes ago.
Yeah. Number 3, in some occasions, you're going to be uncomfortable. You're going to have to wait out long rain delays, scramble up to the top of the gym because somebody's Wi-Fi is not working, not having a place to sit at all, which has happened to me on numerous occasions, standing for really long periods of time. So, Barca, I've had big games where I didn't have a place to sit. And that's legit, dude. Like, I did not have a place to sit. And I'm standing or sitting on some concrete slab somewhere because I was not being very smart and I gave away all my media seats. So
I tell you who didn't have a place to sit, the digital guy, and who also, you got the media person complaining. It was like, I'm not right behind home plate or right on the 50-yard line.
Right.
You got me out here. You got me out here with extra media or up in the crow's nest or up on the riser in the back.
Yep.
I demand a better seat.
Yep. Yep.
I feel for those people because I used to get the bad seats too. They'd be like, we're just going to stick you into the radio booth.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
There was even one time where a new press box was built where the comms people did not even have a set space for their digital team.
Yeah.
No lie. That's all I'll say.
I believe it 100%. Barca number 4, and this is more of on the media relations PR side. This is focus on the things and people that can get you the most reach. You're going to be pulled in a million different directions. So you have to decide who's going to be able to give you the biggest mouthpiece for your team or program. And since time is of the essence, you won't be able to pitch national media with emails. The best thing you can do is to use your television partners. Tell it to them to their face at a practice or a shoot-around. They're prepared because you prepared them with notes that you slaved over and things people have written about your team through the year. Now you get to fill in the gaps, if they have any. Plus, it's really awesome getting to talk to them. They just want info, and you're the person they turn to.
Tell me about this time of year postseason.
Yeah.
Obviously, from a comps perspective, you're getting a ton more media requests.
Yeah.
Everybody's coming out of the woodwork. You've got the normal people that you take care of. You got more people from local stations that want to do extra stories. Then you've got regional or national media who might not have covered your team all year or maybe done one or two pieces. I have to imagine you like that time of year, just the rush and the buzz and everything's moving, at high speeds. And there's just so many unexpected things that happen. And did you enjoy that part of the year?
It was awesome. It's awesome, but it's like you don't really remember anything because everything happens so fast. And I remember talking to someone, this was back when Coach Cal was at Memphis, and I remember talking to their SID. They had gone to the Final Four, and the next year I was just like, hey, man, were you okay during that? He's like, I honestly don't remember one thing about it. It was like 3 weeks of just you're just on all the time. I mean, it's an exhilarating time. It's really, really, really fun. And it's really fun to talk to national media who haven't seen you before. And it's really cool. I mean, and then you see some of your local people out on the road, you may have beer with them or, chat with them outside of work. And, You know, it's like you're kind of on bonus time when you're in the tournament or, you know, at a championship or whatever, and you just see people you haven't seen in a while. Sometimes you have friends in the business that you haven't seen all year, and you meet up, and so it's just it's a really, really fun time of year. It's also a hard time of year, but you know, I think about my time fondly, although I just remember just having zero sleep. You know, you're in the NCAA tournament, you have no idea where you're going until, I mean, I'd have people texting me telling me where we're going, like friends, you know, like, hey, it looks like you're going to California. I was like, oh, I didn't know that. I mean, because we find out, I think people don't really realize that. You know, you find out when you're going, where you're going, when that slide comes across the screen on CBS. I mean, that's how you find out who you're playing and where you're going. And so then you have to be kind of prepared. You got to, like, I don't know, from that moment on, like, okay, we're playing this team we've never played before. Let's figure this out. And so it kind of happens on the fly. And then you leave on a Tuesday. If you're playing Thursday, you leave Tuesday morning. So you've got to get all this stuff turned around for national media. I mean, they're waiting on it. You know, it's like time doesn't matter to them. They just want it. And yeah, so that part's really hard, but it's fun. You know, it's fun. So you do it with a smile on your face.
You know what I used to love, especially during March Madness while we were working together? If I was at home watching on TV, guess who I got to see all game long on TV?
Who's that?
That would be you, my friend. Sitting there right next to probably either the radio announcers or right next to the bench with the coach strolling back and forth on the sideline.
Yeah.
And there you'd be right there. You'd have a tie, a button-up shirt.
Yeah.
A nice hair part.
Looking sharp.
You'd never really look frazzled. You didn't look frazzled. I don't know if that's because you knew the camera was basically on you all the time.
Yeah, I did.
But what's it like having that type of seat at some of these major events?
Awesome.
That's pretty cool.
It's just the best. It's the best. I mean, most of the time, I mean, I'm sitting at center court, first row, like right off the floor. And it's pretty awesome. I mean, it's, you know, I've been in some instances where there's been 10 pros on the floor, and I'm sitting there watching, you know, these guys are going on to play professional basketball somewhere else, in the NBA or in Europe or whatever, but there's pros and you're right there, middle of the action. It's really, really fun. You have the best seat in the house most of the time. I tell you talk about TV, Barca, and I would always try to get on TV, dude. Always. And especially in some of the like outdoor sports where you could kind of pick where the camera was going to be. You knew where it was going to be. So you would like stand behind a coach or a player. And
like Golf Channel?
Yes, Golf Channel. Oh, I knew exactly where those cameras were, dude, all the time. And I wanted to be on TV all the time. And I would text my college buddies like, hey, I'm about to be on TV. You guys need to turn this on.
Text your college buddies. You would text us in the office.
I would text you guys too. But like, of course, you guys were watching, but they weren't watching. And so we would have so much fun with those. I mean, I would always try to find the camera. You got to have the FaceTime. You got to get on TV, right? You would have done the same
reminder
thing.
In the office. Hey, look, I was there to work, Boggs.
Yeah.
That's all I ever did. I wasn't there for the fame or the glory. You're sitting there walking like 18 years at Pebble Beach or wherever, where these tournaments were,
right,
and just trying to figure out what's the best location on hole 6 to where I can continue to be on this broadcast.
Yes.
100%. And we're all sitting in the office looking up at the big screen, the flat screen monitor, and we're all thinking about trying to prepare for 4 sports at the same time.
Yeah.
And there's Boggs right there just
on TV,
gritting at the camera in the background on TV. So
yeah, dude,
I don't know. I'm feeling, between this and Maui, there's just, maybe you did things the right way.
You just have to get on TV, dude. I mean, how many times are you going to be on national TV from this moment forward in my life? I will probably never be on national TV again. I mean, I don't want to say never, but there's a large percentage that I will never be on national TV again. You got to take advantage of your opportunities.
Sponsored by.
If you'd like to support the show or move some cash around before the feds notice, hit up my burner. Ask for Bodie. That's a reference to The Wire, people. I try to just slide these random pop culture references in throughout the show. But yes, it's time for our title sponsor for today's pod, and it's Budget Purgatory. You submitted your budget proposal months ago, and it's the new fiscal year, but you still have no idea what you're allowed to spend. Ownership loved your vision. They just loved it right up until it had a price tag. Now you're building off last year's leftovers with a new mandate to be more strategic. Budget Purgatory. You're not funded. You're not denied. You're just stuck waiting in middle management hell.
We also want to shout out the waterproof recliner for that one longtime staffer who's been in the locker room since sunrise. He doesn't work in facilities. He is facilities. Camped out in the corner like a retired lifeguard, ready to chat, offer a tic-tac from 1997, or just watch.
Oh.
He's comfortable in his own skin and, frankly, everyone else's. He's not changing. He's not showering. He's just there, holding court in a towel, smiling like he's in a Cialis commercial. The waterproof recliner, because the break room was too far and no one stopped him yet.
Come on. Damn, man. That took a dark turn real fast. But hey, we're getting paid in Enron stock, so who really cares? Like Rasheed Wallace, who once said, CTC, cut the check, people.
The check.
As you know, Boggsy, having worked with me, or basically anybody that's worked with me, especially in the postseason, I am a certified mad scientist, especially when it comes to tournaments and postseason. All of the pieces to the puzzle are on the table, and how can we do this in the most optimal way to show off the brand to the world? So here is just a little peek inside of the madness in my brain of tips on how you can help get ready for the bright lights as a content creator and a strategist. First of all, your training ground should be during the regular season. This is when you get your reps in. This is the time to set your habits, your workflows, and expectations for content, and make sure you're performing on all cylinders. So when the big moment comes, you are ready for it. Get those reps in time and time again. Figure out what works and what doesn't, what's efficient and what's not. You got to get that workflow going in the right place if you're going to have success in the postseason. It's the same thing as like athletes. Athletes don't just flip the switch in the postseason, right?
Yeah.
It's an entire season process, and it's the same thing with content creators.
Yep.
The second tip that I always emphasize to a group of content creators, there is no template. We make the rules. This is something I always tell content teams. Throw away any past postseason script you've done. Open your minds to being the most efficient and creative. If some content in the past that you've always done week in and week out during the season has not shown results, that's why you have the data. Get rid of it. Pivot. Let's put all of our ideas on the table and let's figure out what's the best way that we can achieve our overall goal. And that's where this next tip comes in. Start with a big brainstorm session with your content team. And anybody who knows me knows I love a big whiteboard session. What are we trying to achieve? What demo are we trying to hit? How do you want people to perceive your brand during this momentous time? All of this, to me, when you're doing this brainstorm bubble, is playing to the strengths of your team, of your content team, of your team that's on the floor, everything. Why are people going to find this team or its players interesting? What is the team's DNA and how do you bring it to life? Maybe you have that one player that's just a clutch shot maker, or another that's a high-flying dunk artist, or a teammate that has a unique backstory to how they got to this school today. Remember to understand the strengths of your content team as well. What resources do we have? What type of content do we excel at producing the most? You got to know what those things are. And to me, it's like in basketball, if we're a great three-point shooting team, then let's put a lot of our strategy around that specific thing. Same thing goes for content.
Yeah, can I pipe in here for a second? I think that I do think that comms people, I personally should have done a better job of trying to cultivate stories for marketing. Like that's just one thing that just did not, it was just not very important. And if I had to do it all over again, that's all I would be doing is cultivating stories, figuring things out to tell our marketing folks, to tell our external media, to tell everybody. because I just don't think sometimes that those stories get told. I mean, I think there's so many stories that people just sit on, or like, I've heard that before. I don't think it's very important. You just kind of have to have your ears tuned in to what people are saying. And a lot of things that you may think are boring are not boring. And so you just have to learn how to me, just cultivate that stuff. I think comms people in sports, we need to do a better job of helping you guys out.
Well, here's what I think the same thing happens with content people is when you're living in the day in and day out in the trenches throughout a 3, 4, 5 months of a season, everything becomes old hat.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the storylines, and things that you're doing have been covered multiple times. But when you get to the postseason, you almost have to hit the reset button on your brain because there's a much larger audience out there, not just locally, but nationally.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's always important when I would have these brainstorm sessions to like, okay, what are the 2 or 3 things that define who this player is? Okay, how do we now make that story reach the national level? Maybe it's in media pitches, or maybe it's a long form video we're going to do on our YouTube channel,
right,
or whatever it might be on how we want to tell that story visually and creatively. To me, is always important. So it's something I always remind our groups, especially later in their career, like play to our strengths. This is what we have. This is the perception, or this is the authenticity of who these people are. And these are the 2 or 3 things that we can name immediately about this person that define who they are. And that now, how can we take that, even if it's an old narrative early in the season or something you've seen in an interview room where it's been asked 10 different ways throughout the season, and you're like, man, that's definitely agree on that.
Yeah, it just kind of gets down to the point that, not everybody knows what you do, and not everybody knows the things that you know. And so you just have to tell people. And also having good relationships with your marketing and social media people is huge, because you can run over and share a couple grapes with your coworker and talk about things that are going on with your team. And they need to know that stuff, and you need to know what they're working on. And so it's just all so collaborative, and some places aren't that way. We had a great relationship, right? I thought that we were working together. We did a great job communicating with each other, but I think sometimes it doesn't work out that way.
I think it's all about being proactive. From my role, I have to be proactive in my asks to make sure I hit you up and do my rounds with the proper people to figure out what those storylines are, right, and how can we maximize them. Or maybe there are media appearances that are already happening. Someone's appearing on the Jim Rome show because we just had a big win. I can take that content and repurpose it for my own channels.
Right.
And it's just staying abreast on all of those types of things. But the way I always looked at it is like, hey, you've got enough on your plate day to day from what you're doing from a comms perspective and trying to service all of these different media outlets and requests. So from my end, I need to be proactive. And instead of waiting on you to do some of these things, or any person in comms, I need to be proactive in that. So that's the stance I always took.
Right.
Is you have to go after it. All right. Next tip: what worked and what didn't. I know that sounds easy, but you have the data. Use it to your advantage. Go back through the seasons of your posts. See what the biggest hits were. See why they worked. While you're at it, assess your inventory. Go back to your media day shoots. Go back to popular moments during the season. It could be like GIF reactions or highlights or other things that define. You should be building a bank during the season that you have all of those things at your disposal, whether the individual player folders or fan folders or whatever it is. Like, you don't have to create everything from scratch for the postseason. That's the great thing about it. You've got a tremendous inventory. It could be sound bites at the start of the year during preseason camp that now feel way more relevant now than they did in the moment when maybe you weren't expecting this big run in the postseason. So anything that could have potentially been assets that could be unused or used again, look at all of those things. That's part of this discovery process. Just be having your catalog things that you can react and refer to at any moment or any given time, because there could be a time in the postseason where something happens that directly relates to something that happened earlier in the year that the mass audience doesn't know about. If you already have that thing cut and in a folder and easy to find and grab and cataloged and inventoried, then you can react quickly in the moment. Here's one of my favorite parts of postseason is really addressing the narratives at play. Got to know the storylines going into the postseason, even if you've capitalized on them before, as I've said. You have more eyeballs, especially nationally, on your product. Your best stories might seem old hat after you've been grinding during the season for months, but you have a new audience now, and this is the last part of the ride, and engagement is much higher at this time of season. The first thing I always think of, okay, what does the audience think of this player or this team or this storyline? Do they think that we'll actually address it? Meaning, like, do they think we'll actually do content from it? I don't mean controversial. I mean, it can be, but I just mean fun in a way. So I'll give you an example. Dansby Swanson's going to be, or he ended up being the number one pick in the MLB draft, and had the pleasure of working, with him and a lot of great baseball players. And there was a group of us that we were collaboration is key here. And we would just, shoot the shit and try to come up with fun ideas. And we realized one of the narratives was a quote that happened during the SEC tournament where I can't remember if it was Coach Corbin or who it was, said, basically the SEC network had turned into the Dansby Swanson network. And so there was a lot of engagement. That's because,
it did.
It did. There was, Dansby was basically like a K-pop star or like Backstreet Boys. Like the amount of coverage he was getting, and he was the number one pick in the draft. So you had this perfect storm. And from our end, we were like, okay, this is a storyline that's playing right now. So how can we play into it? So we decided to throw everything on the table. And one of the things that we came up with and that we ran with was, let's poke fun at it a little bit in satire, in sort of an SNL, Saturday Night Live style of, what do you think all the other players think of this? And not their true feelings, but let's script something to make it seem like they're tired of all of this in a comical way. So we decided to create a press conference with 3 players, and all they would get asked from the media was questions about Dansby Swanson and nothing about the game, nothing about their own personal efforts. And it would slowly ramp up. Like the first question or two, the players would be like, yeah, Dansby's not here, but this or that. And then what we told them is like, it's going to slowly ramp up your anger to where you're going to get to the point to where you're going to get mad and explode and walk out. And so everybody was in on the bit, baseball humor. And so we're like, okay, let's address this. Everybody knows this narrative, but let's pretend like the players are just sick of it. We wanted it to be like an SNL sketch to where it was going to last 6 or 7 minutes. Now that's pretty crazy because your attention spans to things like that is not typically that long. But to us, it was the importance, like an SNL sketch, the slow burn of not rushing through the anger. You wanted to see what actually it felt like. And so we're like, we're going to stick to our guns. Let's do it this way. And just all of us collaborating just had incredible ideas. We wrote the script together. We edited together through the middle of the night, and we put it out. And not only did that resonate on social media, but one of the coolest things that happened, I think, for all of, for me at least, but I think for the entire group, is they actually played that video during the ESPN broadcast of our game in the College World Series. So then you start thinking about, man, you're really impacting that. But let me tell you again, there was another game in that same College World Series that we weren't playing in. We were still alive. We probably won it that year, I think. We're probably sitting in the hotel working, and have another game on in the background. And then they played that video again. It wasn't even during our game. I mean, that when you talk about like the pinnacle or the peak of like getting the most bang for your buck.
Yeah.
And this was all us taking a chance, all of us doing something, I guess, a little risky and fun, and it could have fallen flat on his face. But the thing is we were aware of the narrative. We were aware of the hotels in Omaha. They actually had to get security guards, not because I'm sure probably a little bit of a safety issue. It's because these kids were all going. They wanted his autograph to see him. The people were knocking up on his room trying to figure out where he was to get autographs and pictures and stuff. I'm talking 24/7, man. This is like the Beatles coming to America. No joke.
Love the embassy suites, though. I love the cookies. Sign me up for the cookies, dude. Oh my god.
That and the DoubleTree. The DoubleTree
I got it mixed
cookies.
up. DoubleTree. That's the one we stayed at.
Oh yeah.
The cookies, Bray. Love the cookies.
I think I was there with you for one of the NCAA tournaments. I can't remember if it was San Jose or where it was. And we just got in and out, got in a cab, and we came back, but I was still hitting up those cookies. And a lot of times I would ask, can I get 2 or 3?
Yeah.
My friend wants some, but the friend was really just me.
Yeah.
I look back now, those are probably like, they're probably like double chunk chocolate cookies where there's 750 calories a piece. But dude, they were warm. The chocolate chips would just melt in your mouth.
Just the postseason. You have to just absorb the calories. That's just part of the deal.
sometimes I'll just walk into a DoubleTree like I'm a guest. I'll just be like,
hey, why not?
hey, great to see you again.
Yeah.
My stay's been going great. Hey, can I get another one of those cookies?
Oh my God. And they had a
And
little
then I exit out
drawer.
one of the
They had a
side
little
doors.
drawer. Was
Yeah.
that drawer heated?
It was.
Had to have been heated. And they just opened that little
It was.
drawer. Give
Kept them
me
nice and toasty.
a flippin' cookie.
Nice and toasty.
So good.
And at first I would be bashful. I'd be like, hey, I'm hoping somebody else is working this next shift so they don't see me keep coming down here. Right. And then that way I can maximize through each of those. And then by the time, after a couple days or as I got braver, I'd just be like, hey man, can you just give me like 3 or 4 cookies?
Yeah. Love the DoubleTree. It was just a nice treat to have, like you come home and like it could be late at night and like they have the cookies. So you just go grab a DoubleTree cookie and they were always warm. Oh man. DoubleTree, you want to sponsor us? Like we're down for that as long as you give us cookies.
The DoubleTrees didn't even make it halfway up the elevator to my room. They were gone. DoubleTree, we love you. Sponsor the show.
That's right.
Next up, I have some of your biggest content will be the organic moments that happen when you least expect it. Don't get caught up in your content script. Be willing to drop everything when it happens and always remember to go where the value is. That should be your priority. Some of the biggest content pieces I've been a part of were never on the script to begin with. So be flexible, be ready to move, and push some of the other stuff to the back that maybe you've always done it, but it's not that important in this moment. Finally, a last tip is visualize the moment and live in it. The same way a baseball player goes to the plate and tries to visualize what set of pitches he could be seeing is the same thing you should be doing as a content team. When that big moment happens, you don't get any do-overs. So the main thing that I always tell people is let's put the right people in the right positions to succeed on game day. That's half the battle. I think of an example back with a team that had just won a game in March Madness and made the Final Four. And there was one of the star players crying on the floor near his mom. And we had a videographer that realized how to visualize and live in the moment. So instead of grabbing just a quick shot of this person crying and hugging somebody, this person abandoned all other celebrations, stayed on it in one shot like it was a cinematic masterpiece, and we ended up with a full minute long, raw and uncut of this entire moment. And it was an incredible piece of content, one that, the first time I saw it when it came back to me, I was just like, that's it. That's it. Give me more of that. Give me as much as you have of that moment. Give it to me raw. I don't need music. I don't need it produced.
Yeah.
But again, that goes back to being in the moment and being in the right position.
It happens so fast, though. Doesn't it happen fast?
It does.
That's why you have to have
That's
pros.
where the visualization.
Yes, you have to have people who know what they're doing in those spots. It makes a huge difference on who's doing it. And it happens so fast. And, you can miss it.
That's where the training comes in during the season. And that's where also, again, having these visualization conversations that I would have with content creators beforehand of just like, you got to be in the moment.
I'm up to my ears right now.
All right, Barca, you need to handle this week. I still have steam coming from my ears thinking about that $500 ribeye that was posted to social media. You're up.
All right, people. 3 letters you've probably heard before. A, B, C. No, not always be closing. This isn't a speech about steak knives and Cadillacs. This is a lesson from someone whose badge once stopped working. ABC. Always be conscious of where you work, conscious of who you trust, conscious of what systems are built to protect and what they're not. So let's talk about HR. To be clear, this isn't a rant. It's a reality check. For a long time, I misunderstood their purpose. I thought HR was a safe place, a place to speak honestly, a place that would help fix things when leadership wouldn't. It's not. HR's job is to protect the company, not the employee. That's not a criticism, that's just the role. And if you work in an at-will state where you can be let go without reason, hear this loud and clear. Anything you share with HR can be used to build a case against you. Even if you're trying to help, even if your concern is culture, not conflict, even if you think they'll see your passion as a strength. I've raised concerns, I've asked hard questions, I sincerely believed I was doing the right thing. And for that, I was labeled a risk. A meeting showed up on my calendar with a vague topic, no warning, no heads up, just an escort out of the building, cold, clinical, final. I don't say this to scare you, I say it to protect you. If you're reporting harassment or any legal violation, yes, please speak up. But if you're hoping HR will fix the dysfunction your boss keeps ignoring, you're rolling the dice, because here's the truth. Companies don't usually reward the people trying to fix culture. They reward the people who don't disrupt it. So be smart. Know what HR is actually there for. Understand the risk of oversharing. Find safer outlets for processing workplace dysfunction. Because while HR might greet you with a smile and a goodie bag on day one, they might also be there when it ends without a civil, proper goodbye. They'll protect the brand, and you should protect yourself.
Man, that hits really hard. Good advice, though, because I think we all think sometimes they can, they'll fix the culture problems that you have in your space, and they don't. It sounds to me like the underlying theme here would be, if something's going bad, you don't like the culture, you probably need to get out.
Correct. That's the thing that I've learned over the years, that if it's not right, start looking elsewhere. It's not something you can control. It's not something that you can fix just by yourself typically. Explore your options, see what's best. The writing might be on the wall, which it has been for me in the past, but take care of yourself. Find other outlets to detox and talk about some of these issues that you're facing in a very stressful workplace, and do it elsewhere, because everything can be used against you, good or bad. It's tough to say a lot of these things, because my intentions were typically always like, I truly want to fix this. This is a real problem that at least I'm having every day. And I think part of the problem was myself, because I cared too much. I was too passionate or emotional about it, and needed to be more level-headed at times. When you see something that doesn't get fixed and it lingers on, and you've tried to go the appropriate routes of the chain of command through your boss, and then things still don't get fixed, that's very discouraging, and it causes a lot of mental damage when you're dealing with long 80-hour weeks. So again, this is just advice, especially for people younger in the industry. However you choose to handle these situations, I say go for it. I'm just offering some of my input, and these are just some of the things that I've faced in some really difficult situations.
I mean, really, the end of the day is you just have to figure out what's good for you. Can you handle it? Can you stick around? Or do you just need to leave? I mean, Barca, I've had evaluations where I would say what was on my mind and things that needed to be changed and and nothing ever was. Nothing, And people say you leave bosses, not jobs. That's kind of what you need to do in certain situations. If it's not good, get out.
Yeah, I had one instance where what I thought was the company was doing an annual review on how to make the workplace better. And it wasn't like the movie Office Space where they brought the Bobs in to evaluate everything. It was actually people from HR and senior leadership really wanting to know the heartbeat and pulse of every department, how they can improve, difficulties, challenges that were being faced. And I made the mistake early on of being a newer person and saying, hey, look, here's some of the challenges that I'm facing. Here's what was told me about the job when I decided to take it. And now here's how things are happening that don't line up with what you guys told me when I was hired. Those are things that wasn't something that ultimately was the final straw, but it builds a case for either for you or against you. They may take that information and be like, hey, you know what? That's a great point that needs to be fixed. Or, we need to think about restructuring this area, or changing up the hiring, changing up the reporting process, or even little things like maybe we need to have more snacks on Fridays, whatever it is.
Those are just BS, because I'm going to take it back to business school, Barca. Like, one of the main things that a good leader and manager does is they walk around and they talk to people. And these meetings you would have are just a substitute for that. Their laziness of not getting out and walking around. Question for you. legit question. In your work life, how many bosses have you had that actually walked around, that actually came by and said, hey, man, how you doing? Or what's going on? Or how can I help? Or what's just listening to you? It's such a it's a skill that I think managers just don't know how to do. And it's frustrating. And so they don't really know what's happening because they don't try, and B, then they sneak around your back and do these sneaky, HR things. I don't know. It just promotes bad culture, if you ask me. I mean, to have good culture is to know what's happening with your people. And the way you know what's happening with your people is walking around and talking to them.
I think for me personally, the relationship with my boss is always an extremely important one. And so my situation has always been different, to where I've actually been really close with most of my bosses that I've had over the years. But I would say, analyzing it now, to a fault. So, it's definitely always been like a support system, and sometimes for each other, because a lot of times I would come into some of these positions with just as much experience or more than the person that I was reporting to, which I was totally cool with. I never had issues. I always looked at myself as being the right-hand person that I can be for my boss and to make their job and life easier. Now, with that comes a lot of sharing of things that are good and bad, of things that are going on in a department. Like a lot of times you just have like your event sessions, and I've had those sessions with where my boss has initiated them, or my boss has set that culture. And there've been other times where I've vented because some other things haven't changed. And I've always loved the transparency of it. But thinking back and being a little more self-aware now, I was definitely painting a picture overall by discussing a lot of the dysfunction that was going on, also potentially damaging some of my own reputation within the building, because in some cases I was responsible for that area to be operating at optimal performance. And so that's kind of again, how I say, like, anything can be used against you. And so I've developed those types of relationships where, like, they want to know what's working and what's not working. And I want to give them the details so they know the pulse of everything. But there are times where I share too much, and I should have kept some more things to myself and dealt with them internally. But again, I'd say I wear my emotions on my sleeve. I've always loved my relationship with my bosses. We're in the trenches together. And so I feel like they've probably walked around. Some of them have, but a lot of times I'm just very proactive to be in front of them. And so I took sort of a little bit of a different strategy, but I agree with you. Like, you can't just confine yourself, if you're upper management, to staying in your office with the door closed and barely speaking to people. That it just doesn't work.
I was never asked, like, how can I help you with what you're in your career? Like, how can I get you where you want to go? Where do you want to go? I never really had those talks. And, I worked in the business for a long time, and I never really had those talks. And it's kind of frustrating when you think about it. Like, these people, your bosses, just, I don't know whether they're afraid to lose you, or they just don't, that's just something they're not thinking about, or it's too much work, or it would hurt their reputation. I don't know what it was, but I really never had people come up to me and just kind of ask me, like, where do you want to go? Like, what is something you want to do? Can I get you, is there something else you want to do in the department? Is there something else you want to do in sports? Is there something else you want to do outside of sports I can help you with? I just never had those conversations at all.
Time to wrap it up.
And that's another edition of No Longer Credentialed. Thanks to all of you listening, and if you like it, tell a friend and give it a 5-star rating on your podcast app of choice. Next week on the pod, we haven't quite figured out what we're going to talk about yet, but just know it'll be good.
Look, people, we have real lives, and we're trying to pretend that we have real jobs.
Don't forget to check us out on social media at NLC Pod on X, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We'd love to hear from you. Until next week, keep grinding.
Oh, what's
I'm
up?
doing something
Oh,
wrong.
what's up? Was
I
that
ran up a $500
Was
steak.
that steak medium?
I mean,
Was it well
I'm
done?
fat, I'm skinny, I'm fat, I'm skinny. What's the
What's the
deal?
deal?
With
Pick
a
a
$500
weight.
steak.
And go with it.
My SID doesn't need a $500 steak. Why do I need a $500 steak?
What's the
What's
deal with
the
that?
deal
And
with that?
what do they call the sauce they marinated in? It's not A1.